Welcome to the Wasting Time podcast. How's it going, Chris? Episode 45?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, it's going okay, mate. How's things with you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Got Fil Thorpe-Evans from Neck Deep on today.
Yeah, or formerly of Neck Deep.
Formerly of Neck Deep, yeah.
Yeah. I think this was a good booking because it's quite interesting, like hearing about all the stuff that happened with Neck Deep rising so high, and then the direction that his musical career has taken in the last couple of years.
Big switch up.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into him, was there anything you wanted to cover in particular? Anything that's been on your radar?
I guess the NFG album dropped last week? Last Friday was it?
Yeah. So at the time of recording, just over a week ago. Yeah, that was the big thing I wanted to talk about. I don't think I had too much outside of that.
You've been quite into it, right?
Oh, I love it. I would say because it's quite long. It's 15 songs, a bit unnecessarily long. But I say there's at least 10 or 11 songs that I genuinely really like, which is, that's pretty good going. So for me, it's like their best album since, I think, Radio Surgery was the last one that I really liked before that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. I've only listened to it a couple of times and kind of flicked through it a little bit, so I need to give it a bit more time. But I think there's 3 or 4 real standout tracks for me.
Which are?
Oh, you're asking me the titles now. I did send you them on WhatsApp.
I feel like you liked... Did you like Double Chin for the Win? Everyone seems to like that one.
Double Chin for the Win. I'm looking back here now. Like I Never Existed.
Oh, you're into that one. Yeah.
Greatest of All Time, which I saw the... Did you see the acoustic version they stuck up?
No, it's come up on my YouTube suggested. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's cool. And Stay a While. It's a good track.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice little cheesy upbeat pop punk one.
I'm glad they've dropped the whole synthy thing as well. So
there's
a little bit in there, but they went in that direction for a while. And it wasn't really for me.
Yeah, agree. And I don't mind them doing that on different records, trying out different things. I mean, it keeps it fresh, I suppose, but it doesn't always work. And this is more like the tried and test. This is just what they do best, really. I think Trophy's a real standout for me. Like, I would say that's in maybe my top 5 songs ever by them already. I just think the chorus is amazing.
Yeah,
such a good hook on it.
Quite the back catalogue to go through now. So, what record was that? What number record?
10. It was their 10th full length. Because they've been in the band 23 years now.
Yeah, man. Wow. Makes you feel a bit old, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah.
Still really relevant with young crowds, though, as well, right? They've done pretty well.
Yeah, that's. I mean, them and the few bands of this ilk seem to have managed to have done that, and it's quite impressive, isn't it? Because like when we were listening to them in 2000 or whatever, you wouldn't. And if someone said, "Oh, in 2020, like young kids are still going to like them," you would have been surprised.
You've been listening to anything else?
I've been listening to quite a lot of country music, but
right. Okay.
Not desperately relevant to the kind of stuff we cover here, so I'll not go too heavily into that. On more the line of the kind of stuff we do at Neck Deep, have got an album out soon, which is obviously quite relevant to this show. They put out a new song from that called Fool, which is pretty cool. I like that. I
haven't heard that yet, so yeah, I have to get into it, especially with our guest today.
Yeah. And then I don't... Never really been into Knuckle Puck, but they put out a song with the guy from Mayday Parade on, and I thought that was pretty good. And I think for this genre of music, that's pretty much it. And then outside of that, I've just been listening to a lot of Bruce and a lot of country, really.
Nice.
And some pop things like Halsey, things like that.
Seems like you? There's not a great deal. I did watch the that Frank Turner gig at the Clapham Grand.
Oh yeah, on Thursday night. How was it? I just dipped in very quickly.
Yeah, it was great. You know, I guess he's doing a lot of this independent kind of fundraising gigs at the moment, isn't he? But he did it from the venue. With, you know, have you heard of Beans on Toast?
Yeah, of course.
The singer, yeah. So he was on there, and there was a couple of other artists I didn't
there was a bit. There was a bit with Billy Bragg. Did you see that?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I caught literally like the last 10, 20 seconds of that. So
okay.
But yeah, he's doing his bit, isn't he, for all the independent venues?
Yeah, he is.
But it's starting to see. I mean, on that note, you're starting to see a lot of bands, and I guess it's more so in America. From what I can tell, they're starting to kind of book in tours again now. I can't remember exactly which ones have been popping up, but just seen quite a few that are actually starting to.
It seems
to get them booked.
Yeah, but it seems certainly from what I've seen, mostly for 2021 though.
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen anything for this year.
I suppose that's achievable at the moment. Well, who knows?
Hopefully. But yeah, a couple of those big tours that were booked for this summer, like, you know, the Green Day, Fall Out Boy, Weezer one over here, and the Newfound Glory, Simple Plan one in the States. I see they've both shifted to next year.
It'll be a good day when we can all get to a gig,
won't it?
If there's any band you could go see as your first gig back, which one who would you go for?
Great question. I think I'd just have to go predictable here and say Good Charlotte. Still, whatever anyone says about, you know, hate them or love them, I do think they're one of the better live acts.
What about a band you've never seen before?
Do we have to stay in our genre?
No, of course not.
I would say that would be either if I'm staying in this genre, I'd say Quiet Drive, and outside that, I'd say maybe Bruce Springsteen.
Quiet Drive, fair enough.
You know, my love for Quiet Drive. Still want to get their singer on this show. Yeah. I'm not giving up on that one. Yeah. What same questions to you?
I guess an MXPX show full lineup would be pretty fun, right?
Oh well, yeah, obviously.
And I guess who I haven't seen. I mean, I know you've seen them a couple of times, but I'd love to see the Bleachers. I know the wife would be really keen to go and see them.
Oh
as well.
yeah,
so
yeah.
Here, I've heard nothing but amazing, live show. So probably something like that.
Yeah.
One day, our day will come. Should we get into our guest then?
I think we might as well. Yeah, because there's a lot to cover in this interview, so might as well crack on with it, I reckon.
Yeah. So we caught up with Fil Thorpe-Evans of, formerly of Neck Deep, based out in LA at the moment. So here it is.
Thanks for joining us, Phil. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. It's a nice, warm morning here where I am. Thanks for having me.
Where are you?
I am in LA.
Nice. What part of LA are you based in?
I actually live in Burbank now.
Oh yeah.
I was in Koreatown before, but not too long ago moved to Burbank. So I guess technically I'm not even in LA right now. I'm like Valley or whatever. But
yeah. It gets pretty hot in the valley, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I mean, I feel like for English people, like it's hot either way. I think the
right.
distinguishing difference is not that drastic. Like it's usually only like a few degrees more in the valley, I think. But I mean, yeah, I feel like it's hot as shit either way. So.
Right. How's it compared to Koreatown? Because Koreatown's quite a sort of hip part of town.
Yeah, Koreatown's pretty hip and like near a lot of, you know, cool bars and like you're a stone's throw from like Melrose and all the cool shit. But yeah, I'm a bit of an old man and I don't go out a huge amount. So Burbank's a lot more like suburban. I'm like, I mean, it's still only like a 10-15 minute drive from most of those places, but like it's much more kind of families and chill where I am now than kind of cool young people.
So how long has that been home now for you?
You mean Burbank specifically, or just like
Well,
LA?
I guess LA, yeah, living out there.
I mean, it's weird because people always ask me that, and like I never quite know how to answer because I've been, even when I was touring with Neck Deep, obviously we toured like so much out of the year, and there was a lot of time I kind of considered myself living here, but I was very aware of the fact that like I would only spend a few weeks at a time here and then go away for a couple months. It's like, is that really living somewhere? I don't know. But I guess, yeah. So I've been doing that like on and off for like 4 or 5 years or something. But I guess in a more like legitimate, like settled down sort of way, just the last few years.
Okay. And do you like LA overall?
I do, yeah. I think it's great. I really like it here. It's funny. I feel like people either really love it or really hate it. From my experience, when it just comes to like English people, and I just happen to be one of the people who loves it. I don't totally understand how anyone could hate it. I mean, like I can't get some of it. Like I know that the biggest problem that the people I knew who hated it was because like it's considered like the business city, and if you're in LA, it means you've got to fucking schmooze managers and agents and labels, and like it's so fake and all this stuff. But I'm like, well, sure, that's not a not real thing, but like it's also so beautiful in terms of just like landscape, and the weather's great, and there's like amazing restaurants and beaches and shopping and cool stuff like that. Like I don't know, I really like it, but I guess that's just me.
No, I agree with you. I think it's got everything. It's one of my favorite cities. You can never get bored with it. And like you say, I don't get it when people talk down on it. Which a lot of people seem to do.
Especially if that's the reason. It's like, well, yeah, you can say the same thing about London and New York, though. Like, there's always like hella loads of business to be done if you're in that city.
Right,
you don't have the beautiful weather and the beaches to balance it out. So, but I don't know. Each to their own. I like it, so it's good for me, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And what's it been like the last few months in the weird world we're living in right now? How's that been for you?
Jesus, man, the last few months has felt like a movie. It's insane. I mean, the quarantine thing, obviously, not all my family, but most of my family is still back in England, and I speak to them regularly. So just seeing how the quarantine thing was different here than it was there is like so nuts. Like we were already like deep in our like serious ass quarantine lockdown when everyone back in England was still like not even aware of the word coronavirus. It was so nuts. Like I remember calling my mum being like, yeah, like we're officially on lockdown now, like we can't even go out, and she's like, well, why? What do you mean? Like they were so behind. It was crazy. And then obviously just as in this last few weeks when things have started to teeter towards normal again, obviously all of the kind of political, race riots and stuff have been going on like majorly over here. I mean, obviously they've been happening everywhere, but I think LA especially was like a real like kind of hub of that. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's just a very crazy time to be alive, I suppose. I mean, a lot of good, a lot of bad, and it's just weird. It feels like every day you wake up and it's like, oh, what's happening today, Is
it impacting much in the way of your work, or I mean, can you pretty much? I mean, doing what you do?
It's definitely slowed a lot of stuff down. More the coronavirus thing than anything else. Like when that set in at the beginning, I didn't notice too much of it. Like because obviously, I guess technically speaking, I'm like freelance. I have a studio at my house and I work out of that. So like for me, it was pretty easy in the beginning to just like carry on what I was working on. But I was actually in the middle, like right as it all set in, a new thing I'm working on was kind of fielding this deal offer that we were going through. And, it was pretty substantial for us. And we were kind of going backwards and forwards on negotiations and stuff. And then we just hit this word where they said like, look, everything is just crazy right now. We literally just have to put this on pause for the next couple months. It's obviously still on pause. So that was the first major stone where I was like, oh man, like this is crazy. Like literally just getting told like, your everyday stuff is just like, oh, we're just going to put this on pause for a couple of months. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll just wait here. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't have it as bad as a lot of people. I know a lot of people who have like real stuff. I mean, even my wife, like she works in like art department for like TV shows and commercials and stuff like that. She hasn't worked for months because she's in a union and like no production is happening because they can't manage the health and safety of it all and risk spreading. And so she usually would work like sort of 14, 15, 16 days in a row and then do a couple of days off and then do another job, and she'd get up at 5 a.m. and get home at 10 p.m. and that's just how it's always been. And now she's like not worked for like 2-3 months, and it's crazy.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, definitely has slowed a lot of stuff down, but I do maintain I don't have it as bad as some people.
Right. Yeah, no, fair enough. Actually, on that subject, did you, looking at your Instagram, was it just last year you got married?
Yeah, I got married last September.
Right, okay. Belated congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you.
How's married? No, actually, no, before I ask the standard how married life is and stuff, kind of, I was thinking, Nick, these are weird people to kind of look to as good interviewers or whatever. But on Sunday brunch when you got like Tim Lovejoy and Simon Rimmer, I know this sounds random, but whenever they have a guest who's just got married, they always ask 2 questions, and I always think, oh, those are quite good questions. And like they had Frank Turner on recently, who we had, and we were talking about his wedding, and we didn't ask these questions and they did. So I'm going to ask you these 2. So at your wedding, I've got 2 questions for you. What was your first dance? And what food did you have at the wedding?
Food. The food I'll answer first. We had a bunch of stuff. It was one of my wife's like kind of friends has this like catering business or whatever, and in full transparency, I kind of let her run the show there a little bit because she's super good at this kind of stuff. We had this like chicken with like potatoes and salad and stuff. We had this other thing, but I don't totally remember. We had this like kind of stewed soup type thing. I think she's gonna kill me if she listens to this. She's gonna be so. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember. Yeah, and
I hope you remember your first dance, mind.
First dance, I do remember. We did it to a Sam Cooke song.
Nice. Yeah, we
very classic romantic stuff.
Yeah. What I'm gonna Nick, should we have a guess at which one it was? Would it be?
I'll go send me. You send me.
I'm gonna go with. I was gonna say Cupid, but I'm gonna say
neither.
Right.
What a Wonderful World, maybe. Sorry, I'm sneaking in loads of guesses here.
It's the. I know the lyrics. I don't even remember the exact name of the song now I think about it.
Your wife really isn't going to be happy if she listens to this podcast.
Well, the funny thing is that was actually my choice.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I'm not going to lie. It's not like I sit around my house listening to Sam Cooke on the regular. I just knew that song and really liked it and felt like it was a really good one.
Yeah.
Damn, what's the name of the song? Because if I remember rightly, Nothing Can Change This Love. That's it. Because that's not like the main... Well, I guess it is the main like tagline of the song. I don't know. Yeah. I just didn't remember that was the exact name of the song. I knew that was like the chorus. But yeah, Nothing Can Change This Love by Sam Cooke.
Is your wife from out there, or is she from back home?
She actually is born and raised in Hungary.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. She was born and raised in Hungary, and then moved here with her family when she was like 10 or 11 or something.
Right.
Her and her family moved to LA, and she's been here ever since. So yeah, she's been here a really long time, but she actually didn't even speak English when she got here. She like learned English when she got to America.
Okay, well, I guess let's kind of go back to the start, if that's all right with you, and we'll do a little bit of a whistle stop tour of, I guess, your early journey into music, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course, man.
I guess, I mean, were you born and bred and raised in Wrexham, or?
No, actually, I'm one of the ones that isn't from Wrexham.
Okay.
There was this very strong kind of, I don't want to say like marketing ploy that we were a Wrexham band, but like there was always at least a couple members that were. I mean, definitely, like I understand why, because the main hub was from Wrexham. Ben was from Wrexham, and Seb was from Wrexham, and Wes was from Wrexham, and so yeah, that is the main hub. But no, I was born in Bury St Edmunds. But I moved to Lincoln when I was like really young, and I like grew up there. Like my first school was in Lincoln and stuff. I think I moved there when I was like 2 or something. Yeah, I was born and raised northerner, I guess.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess how did that kind of work its way into kind of, I guess, Neck Deep and over that way? How did you meet those guys?
So I, like everyone in that scene, just grew up learning to play guitar and trying to start bands, and that was all we wanted to do. And would just start bands that were crap and never got anywhere, and then you'd start again and start another one. And through that ladder of getting a bit older and a bit more like wise to what was shit and why we were terrible, I eventually started this band called Climates, which is a melodic hardcore band, like kind of like Counterparts and those kind of things. And it was me and one of the other guys in it was Sam Bowden, who's in Neck Deep now, because we went to like school together. And we were just like always trying to do bands. And then how did this happen? So I have to like think back now and make sure I get this story right. We were looking for a vocalist, and I think the bassist we had at the time found this guy. He's called Harley. Found this guy online called Wes from Wrexham, because he had posted some music of him singing and it was great, or something like that. My memory's a bit foggy these days, but so we kind of found this guy online that we thought was great, and he lived in Wrexham, and we were going to meet in Manchester and do a rehearsal or like a band jam or practice or whatever and see if it worked. So me and Sam went down to Manchester and met him. It was cool, and at the time he was friends with a couple of dudes in this band called Spires, which was like a UK hardcore band I actually had seen them on tour in Lincoln, and I was like aware of their band, but obviously they were like a small band, so it wasn't like, oh my god, you know Spires? It was more just like, oh cool, I know that band, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think they came to the rehearsal, and it was West and our old tour manager George Prblm, and we all just kind of made friends. And then Spires was touring, and Climates was touring, and we were kind of homies. And then Spires one day booked this tour with a hardcore band called Agitator from Philadelphia. They were coming over to the UK to do like their first ever like headline tour, and Spires was supporting, and they needed a bass player or something, and they said, hey Phil, do you want to play bass for this tour? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And on that tour I got to hear a couple of demos that would end up being Neck Deep, and they were like, yeah, we're doing this like pop punk thing and it could be fun. And there wasn't a lineup or any real plans back then. It was just kind of like doing some other stuff. Then like fast forward a bit later, and that EP Rain in July got finished, and I think it started because there wasn't really any intention to play shows originally, but then Me versus Hero, which I'm sure you guys probably remember.
Of course, yeah. They kind of came back a couple of years ago, I seem to remember.
Oh, really? Yeah. They were great. They were like one of the only ones doing pop punk in the UK, and
right, yeah.
Really good. I was like a big fan of that band when I was like younger and shit. Like I really liked them. I saw them at Slam Dunk when I was like 14 or whatever, and like lost my mind. Right. It was. And they reached out being like, hey, we're doing this little headline tour of the UK. You guys should support. And that was kind of the beginning. It was like, oh shit, well, we need to get a lineup together. And it was like, well, Phil just played bass Spires, which is basically Neck Deep. Like, let's just have him do that.
Yeah.
And then they found this kid on YouTube called Danny. They were like, we got this drummer sorted out. And I knew Seb Barlow then for producing Spires and some other stuff, but I didn't really know Ben, his younger brother. And they were like, oh yeah, like Seb's brother is going to do the vocals and stuff. And it was like, cool. At this point, the Rain in July EP was already online and done. So he was obviously already in, and it was more like when they were putting a lineup together to play a live show, they called me. And yeah, they just were like, hey, do you want to play bass for the first run of Neck Deep shows? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, I had heard the Rain in July EP, and I thought it was really cool, and they were already my friends and stuff, and I was like, all for it.
So you were all doing things that I guess a little bit of a long distance then to start with. It was
Yeah, I
not
guess
your
so.
normal
Yeah.
development of a band.
Totally, yeah. I mean, we'd all been in enough bands that we knew that, like, you don't really, like, it worked for some people, sure, but, like, you don't really need to do the whole generic, like, once a week we get together and practice. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it was that era where, like, producing your own music wasn't super hard anymore. Like, you could get really good sounding songs without going to a studio. So it was like most people were starting to now do it the way it's pretty much done all around, which is you make songs, you, like, produce songs and records and stuff that sound sick without even, like, getting together. Like, you don't need to do that. And, you know, they had kind of already done that part. Like, Seb obviously produced it, and, you know, Ben had written his lyrics and whatnot, and the tracks were there, and so the EP was already done. So it literally was a case of, like, if you can play your instrument, you just need to learn the song, and we should be able to get together in a room the night before and play it, no problem.
Yeah,
that was kind of the theory.
Pretty aggressive, short aggressive rehearsals before tours.
Yeah, honestly, it was like anything to not have to rehearse. Basically, it was just like,
right.
Do you know the song? Yes, right. Well, just play it, right?
We'll wing it,
right. Which is still the way I like to do it now, really. My theory is like if you can't play it, like if you need to rehearse to get it right, like you're not really good enough anyway. Like as dark and as harsh as that sounds, like obviously you got to be able to, like, get together and play it together to find that, like, energy and kind of figure some things out. But, like, the bare bones of it, like, if you can't, like, figure out how to play the song on your own, like, remember the structure of the song, then it's like.
So when in your mind do you kind of remember that really kind of starting to kind of step up to the next level and become, you know, real, like,
honestly, it was genuinely like the first show. As weird as that sounds, because we had all been in bands for so long and trying to do stuff and not getting anywhere, and, like, getting the odd thing. Like, my other band that I was in, Climates, had just done this, like, big European tour with Counterparts, and, like, you know, we were doing, like, fairly legit stuff, but, you know, not making any money and just, like, just grinding it and just trying so hard to get stuff. And then with Neck Deep, you know, all credit goes to those songs and the production and the great work that those guys did on it at the very beginning. When we booked the Me versus Hero shows, I think it was like 5 shows. It was like Leeds, London, Manchester, and a couple other, like, A markets. And we had a message on the band's Facebook page, like, I think the week before the Me versus Hero date started. And I think the first night was Manchester and the second night was London. So that would be our first and second ever show. And we had a message on Facebook from this guy called Leander, and he was like, hey, I'm an artist manager. I work at this company called Mythophonic. They, you know, we handle, like, Enter Shikari and Architects and Your Demise. And
it's funny. I was genuinely going to ask before Nick asked that question. I was like, what point did that Leander bloke come in? Take an intro. Because he was managing my friends at the time, and, like, he was.
Oh, really?
I just
what
remember
band?
them saying, do you remember a band called Eager Teeth? They were from Brighton.
Yes, I definitely do. I think we played a few shows with them.
Yeah.
I swear we did. We played a few shows with them in the early days because it was like a roster thing. So yeah, he messaged the Facebook page and was like, you guys are going to be in London on this day. I'd love for you guys to come to my office and just, like, meet me and say what's up, and we'll have a chat, and then I'll come to the show with you. And back in those days, I wasn't, you know, really involved in the band's business at all. I was still kind of, like, at that point, it was very much like it was kind of their thing, and I was just there to play bass and do what they told me, and I was, like, fine with that. So yeah, we were like, okay, cool, let's do it. So we did the first night in Manchester, and there was, you know, a handful of kids on the front row singing along, which was, like, a new thing. You know, it was the first ever show. And then the next day we went to London, and we went and met Leander. And, you know, long story short, we went to his office, and he just said, I do this, 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 and this, and I think your band is really cool, and I want to manage you. You know, at that time, we looked at the bands he was working with, and, you know, it might as well have been U2 and Bon Jovi, you know, as far as we were concerned, because we were just little scratty kids in the UK scene. So the idea of working with, like, Architects or Enter Shikari was, like, huge. And I think, like, right there in the room, we just said yes. And he came to the show with us and watched the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. We had a manager on day 2, you know. And then it, you know, kind of slowly built from there. He, you know, would get us things here and there, and little press clippings would show up in like Kerrang and stuff, and, you know, tours started coming in. Granted, they weren't really very good ones back then, but for who we were and how new we were just like, needed that.
What were some of those tours that
I remember
you got put on those early days?
One of the ones that really sticks in my mind is one of the really early ones we did. We supported this band called, I don't even remember what they were called, but The Thieves was in the title. And someone asked me about this the other day, and I wanted to say Attention Thieves, but it's not that, because that's another band. No, it was Attention Thieves. My memory is so fucked that, like, in this moment of, like, stupidity, I thought it was Nothing But Thieves, just because I knew that name from somewhere. But it wasn't. It was a band called Attention Thieves. And if my memory serves me right, the singer of that band had been the frontman of another band that had done pretty well going back a few years, and this was his like new band years down the line.
Okay.
And yeah, they were going to do this headline tour, and they were just like very like lovely guys, but, you know, in all honesty, the music was definitely not my thing. It was like, I don't know how to describe it without sounding like I'm slagging it off, but it was kind of like it was like guy rock, you know. It was like that alt scene rock, like, you know, pointy shoes, tight jeans, and like denim jackets.
Ooh.
It was kind of like Dad You Me at 6 almost.
I'm just looking them up as you describe them, and like,
but I don't mean it to. Like, it's just the only way I can describe it, because I love You Me at 6. This was like a little bit more mature, rocky guy version of You Me at 6. I think like it was singing for the occasional kind of yelly part, big kind of riffs.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't like alt scene, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think the momentum of his old band had kind of got them this recognition in like Kerrang and things like that. And anyway, I guess none of that's even that relevant. They were doing this headline tour, we were going to support, and we did that one. And I remember, you know, the venues were terrible. It was like, you know, C, D, and E markets most of the time. We were playing cities that like you didn't even know the fucking name of, let alone if anyone played there.
Right.
And the shows were like 20 kids, and, you know, 15 of them were there to see us most nights. But, you know, back in those days, we were just fucking stoked to be on the road. Like, it seemed like a big deal to us. So, yeah, that was one of the ones we did. We did a bunch of shows with Hacktivist, who, they were doing okay. Nothing major, but, you know,
yeah, I remember
they would know the UK scene, and they were doing some stuff. So we played a few shows with them, and then it just became this thing where, like, slowly over the course of like a year, I guess, like, the shows just got a little bit better. There was like, oh, we're going to do the baby stage at Slam Dunk, and then we're going to do a couple days with Man Overboard or something. And over a bit of time, the names that we were going out with started to actually be names that you knew, and it just kind of slowly built, I guess.
Well, you say it's slowly built, but actually it wasn't really that long since
I guess
came along, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was in the first year. I remember we found out about Hopeless at Slam Dunk. We had, like, I think we'd won the, like, you know, they do that thing at Slam Dunk every year where you can, like, vote for, like, a, you know, an up-and-coming band to play one of the stages or something. And I think there was, like, us and a few other bands in the running for this thing, and we won it. And we, you know, got to play the little stage at Slam Dunk before Man Overboard or something like that. And it was cool. That was like such a big deal. And I remember being there in like the dressing room, and Leander had said, like, because we had started talking about like a, you know, first full length. We might have even already started work on it at that point. It's really hard to say because it was so friggin' long ago. But we had started working on what would be Wishful Thinking. None of us, as far as I'm aware, no, definitely not. None of us had ever been like signed to a label before. So back in those days, we didn't really even understand what that necessarily meant, other than like what any stupid kid in a band thinks being a label is. And I knew that the conversation had been, we're going to do this record on our own. And then, Leander came to us at Slam Dunk and said, like, he'd been in touch with Hopeless and that they were, you know, potentially interested and wanted to talk to the band. And, I mean, that obviously at the time was like the biggest deal in the world. Like, we all knew who Hopeless was, and their roster was like insane. And you know, their roster back then, like these are the days where there was some sort of level of fucking scrutiny involved, I feel. You know, and I still absolutely adore Hopeless Records and all the people who work there. You know, Eric Tobin, who's the head A&R and has been for the last, you know, I think like 15 years. I think he was like the officiant at my wedding. Like he you know.
Oh wow, okay.
He's like family to me. And but back then, I think there was only like 10 people on the label or something, and it was like all time low. And again, I don't think Newfound was on at that time. Shit, I don't even remember.
They might have still been on Epitaph then, probably.
Yeah. All I know is I would look at the Hopeless roster and be like, oh my God, all of those bands are fucking ginormous. This is like an insane situation. The Wonder Years, that's when Wonder Years was like really fucking popping. That was like the golden era of Wonder Years. So naturally, we were fucking stoked. And
first UK band on it at that point, I guess.
Well, we chatted to Alex from Rome a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of credits you guys for their signing that kind of followed shortly after.
I mean, I don't know if we can take credit. Like, you know, they're a good band doing good stuff, and Hopeless paid attention to that. But I know what he means, because like when we started doing the headline runs for Wishful Thinking, and we were like really kind of starting to pop off in the UK. You know, it happens to every band. Like, there's always that one band that kind of comes up with them, and we took them on like a bunch of tours, and you know, I guess even unbeknownst to us, we're starting to build like a UK pop punk scene, because there wasn't really one at the time. And Hopeless obviously came to the shows here and there, and you know, I guess paid attention to the support and liked them, and obviously they went down their own path and ended up signing too, which is really cool.
So was it after signing with Hopeless that you first went out across the pond, or did you actually venture out there?
We had already been out there, and that's kind of why Hopeless got involved, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. We went to Florida kind of for a vacation as a band with the kind of side intention of playing shows. My memory of it is when there was these kids online. I mean, there was kids online all over the world starting to message us. You know, not like thousands every day, but like every now and again we get a message like, hey, we're from fucking Boston, Massachusetts, and we love Neck Deep. When are you coming here? And we'd be like, what do you mean when we coming there? We fucking played like 4 shows in England, mate. Like, be lucky if I ever see Boston. Like, I'm all for it, but, you know, we're a little bit away from a US tour. None of us had ever even toured the US at that point. Didn't even think it was, like, possible. And then our then guitarist, Lloyd, if my memory serves me right, he used to go to Florida with his family quite a lot. That was kind of like their vacation thing. And we had this group of kids messaging us from Florida, and this promoter being like, hey, like, if you come over to Florida, like, we'll, you know, put on this run of shows, and it can definitely sell out. Like, trust us. There's a huge scene for you guys here. Like, and, you know, if you've ever been in a band, you know what it's like. Every now and again, you get these messages that are just like, how much stock can you really take on that? You know,
right?
Like, you're just saying things right now, like. But it seemed a little bit more legit, and I think what happened was, it wasn't this like, we'll pay to bring you over and then do all this shit. I think somewhere along the line, it just started a conversation, and I remember getting a phone call that was like, hey, if we all went to Florida this weekend for a week, like, would you come? Like, we'll just like hang out and have a vacation. We'll go to Disneyland and Universal Studios, and, you know, we'll play a couple shows while we're there. And I was like, well, fuck yeah, of course I'll come. That sounds fucking sick. Like, why wouldn't I come? But like, it'll cost you this much. And it wasn't much money, and I didn't have much money, but it was like one of those things. I had a shitty job. Like, I was working at TJ Maxx, and I'd saved up a bit of money, and I was like, fuck it, like, what am I gonna do? Sit here and fucking play PlayStation all week? Like, yeah, let's fucking go. So yeah, we like booked these flights to go to Florida. We got there, and this kind of group of friends picked us up at the airport and drove us to our hotel, and they were just like, you know, a nice group of kids, similar age to us, and they were like, yeah, you know, everyone loves you here, and like, we're gonna do these shows. And I think we'd been offered like a week of shows, like shows to fill the whole week we were there, and we said, nah, fuck that, we'll do 2 shows because we want to like hang out in Florida and go to the parks and stuff. So we had booked 1 house show which at the time was like, what the fuck's a house show? I mean, I can obviously tell what it is from the name on the tin, but like, what is this, American Pie? Like, I don't even know what that means, but now or whatever, like, whatever you want, I'm in. And then the second one was going to be at Spot, which stood for Skate Park of Tampa, which was one of the levels on the Tony Hawk's game, like the Tampa Am skate park, which I was just stoked to see because I like skateboarding. And they had a venue built into the thing, and it could hold like 300 kids. And at the end of the week, we were going to play a show there. So we were like, fuck, man, I don't care if nobody's there. Like, we're in Florida. This is sick. I could not give a fuck what comes of this, you know? So we went, and I think one of the first nights we did that house show, and it was crazy. There was like hundreds of kids at this like little suburban house in like Florida suburbs, and we played in this like garage type room, and it was absolutely packed, and there was kids like crowd surfing, and everybody knew every word, and it was like nothing we'd ever experienced before, and we were like, holy shit, this is crazy. And then we had a fucking sick week of going to Disneyland, and there was always someone who had like a friend who worked at the park, and they'd get us in for free, and we pretty much did all the parks for free and just fucking hung out like a bunch of fucking 18-year-old idiots, which is pretty much what we were. And, you know, just party at night and do the parks in the day. And then come the end of the week, we did the show at Skate Park of Tampa, and it was like the most legit show I'd ever played in my life. It was like a real venue with like hundreds of kids there, and we were headlining, and we did the show, and it was insane. Like, everybody knew every word. It was,
and they all knew you.
Stage diving, and it was like, it's like the kind of show you like dream of playing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Even our best shows in the UK at that point weren't anything like that.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just like the most fun week ever. It was super, super great. And I think all of us kind of came away from it like, Jesus Christ, like if we could do that in Florida, maybe we could do that in other cities in the US. Like, we made this little kind of like tour video of it, like all bands did back in those days for YouTube, little like tour diary vlog type thing. And we put it on YouTube, and I think that really kind of started a bit of like, I think a lot of people looked at it a bit differently then and was like, oh shit, like, did you kind of see what they did in the States? Like, that's nuts. But it's also when a few people who used to be friends started kind of, you know, there was that kind of the very beginnings of that weird animosity in the scene where like it went from Neck Deep being part of the scene to like Neck Deep being the band that it was really cool to hate. Like, that kind of started then, at least for the bands, not the
not for the fans so much.
Yeah, I won't name names. There was a couple bands we'd like played shows with, and we're like kind of building this relationship. It was like, oh cool, like it seems like we're all going to be next, you know, we're all going to be in this scene that's going to be the next sort of thing in the UK. And there was a couple of them in particular, like I say, I won't name names, but they had a lot to say online and started slagging us off, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, we were all friends. What the fuck happened? Like, will you hate us now because of some shit? Whatever. Like, fucking sit on it, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, we came back, had the little video online, and I think when Hopeless called, one of the first things they said was, you know, we'd seen the video of you guys in Florida, and we kind of want to know, like, how did that come around? Like, tell us the story. And I think they kind of expected us to drop this, like, Gary V business plan vibe in front of them, like, so we did this, and then we did this, and that's why we went to Florida. And it was a bit more like, well, yeah, we just thought it would be a laugh. Yeah, and they obviously were like, oh, cool, and carried on talking, and then obviously ended up signing with them.
Yeah. So cool, man. And then obviously things just exploded even more once you were with Hopeless, like those.
Yeah. So we signed to Hopeless, and we got told the announcement is going to be in Kerrang. You're going to have a whole page, and it's going to be the band you need to know feature, which was kind of the like who's next feature. And I remember at the time I was like a big Kerrang reader, you know, I was like really young, I was a fucking kid, and I always used to go to that page in particular and look who it was, and I always used to think like, fuck, like that band's like about to blow up. That's crazy. Like, fuck, I really want to have a band on there one day. And they, you know, figured that was going to be how they were going to do the announcement. It was going to be like Neck Deep signs to Hopeless, let's go kind of thing. And I remember at the time I was delivering pizzas as a job to make money at this shitty little takeaway. Not even fucking like Domino's or anything badass. It was fucking some like little standalone, like proper like kebab shop type place. And I remember the Kerrang came out one day while I was working, and I like had a pizza in my car, and I like pulled into the Tesco and went and bought the magazine and like sat in my car reading how Neck Deep had signed to Hopeless, like whilst delivering a pizza. That was kind of funny.
So how long was it then before obviously things exploded from there? How long was it before, you know, it became
like when you're in it, you don't really notice the markers, I guess. Like you don't get to see
you're
it.
just on the road, aren't you? You're touring, and it's just
like on the road the whole time. So for us, it never really felt like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't feel like one day we were doing this and the next day we were doing that. It felt like we all felt like it was going fast, but it was still like a slow incline. It was like over the course of a year or two. But it was like I said before, it was just like we'd do a little tour, and then we'd hear about the next one, and the next one would usually have a main person that's like a little bit better than the last one, and then it was a little bit better, and then it was like, oh, like we're going to go out with the Wonder Years, and it was like, oh shit, okay, this is pretty real now, and you know, then it was like, oh, we're going to do Slam Dunk for real this time, and then we're going to do, you know, Warped Tour UK, and it was all very just kind of like, we did one, and then the next one came in, and it was a little bit bigger and better than the last one, on repeat. Well, that's how it felt anyway in my memory. And we just kind of kept building, and then the subject came up of doing a US tour. We were going to do a headline, which looking back is fucking mental. Like we never even, I mean, other than the Florida thing, which doesn't even count, that wasn't a tour. Like we'd never been to the US, so you know, obviously there's people whose job it is to know whether you can do this kind of thing or not, and everyone was telling us we could. So they booked a full US headline tour for Neck Deep. You know, we did like 30-something dates. Like we were going to do the whole country, basically. I mean, a very normal routing. Obviously, you could do 100 dates in the US if you really wanted to. And yeah, we went over and did it, and every night was like a great success. I mean, obviously back then it felt a lot bigger. Like,
who did they send out opening for you on that one?
We had a band called Light Years and Knuckle Puck, and at that time, Knuckle Puck was like not really a thing. I think it was just starting to be a thing. Like they put out that No Good track, and that obviously just kind of blew up for them. But no, I'm pretty confident it was Light Years and Knuckle Puck, and that's where we met Pat, the singer of Light Years. Well, obviously we met all of Light Years, and we just loved them. Same with Knuckle Puck. We had like a great thing with them, super good guys, and Pat, the singer of Light Years, would go on to be like our tour driver. He drove us on loads of tours, and just one of our like best friends, just such a good guy. And yeah, we did this US tour, and you know, the rooms were really small, you know, like I think the biggest shows were like a few hundred kids at most. But, you know, for a UK band who's never been to the US, not to do a support and headline and play random ass cities like fucking wherever, like Iowa or some shit, and still pull like 100 kids and everyone having a great time selling a bunch of merch. Like, it was fucking great. And yeah, we did that, and I think that was the real kind of start. I think once we did that and proved that we could do it, it was like all systems go, you know?
So what were your, I mean, over the, I guess what, until you parted ways, 6 years, 7 years, I guess, what were your kind of best moments during that time? It's
hard to say. It's one of those things where like there's a best moment until there's the next one, and then you look back on the last one and you think,
I guess put it this way: if you could go back to like 2 or 3 nights in Neck Deep history, what would they be? Right
okay,
now?
So big ones. Probably the first time we did Warped Tour would be one of them. You know, sort of any few nights on that whole tour, just because I was obviously super aware of Warped Tour. Like, I was a kid from the scene. I never dreamed I'd get to it. I always used to watch the videos on YouTube and just think it was like the coolest thing in the fucking world. And it was like, if we ever got to do Warped Tour, that would be like insane. I didn't even care if anybody watched us. I was just stoked to be there and like see all these bands that I was like obsessed with and fucking.
Who was on it that year?
4 Years Strong, Less Than Jake, Mayday Parade, Devil Wears Prada, Ghost Inside, So Far, Yellow Card, Every Time I Die.
I mean, it's always going to be pretty strong, isn't it?
Obviously, at the time, like I said, that was like, those were the biggest bands in the world to me. Like, I didn't really listen to any other kind of music. All I cared about was like that scene, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't listen to shit outside of that. So they were like the fucking stars to me. And we did it, and it was just so fucking sick. It was just the most fun, and we had a really great crowd every day, and kind of heads were turning, and you could kind of feel the momentum build. So that'd definitely be one.
Did you do the full run, or did you just do a handful?
Yeah, we did.
Wow.
We did the full fucking thing. We did the whole rig.
It's pretty relentless. We've spoken to a few people that have, I guess, done it on the podcast.
Quite a few now. Yeah.
So there's like mixed feelings about it. Some just really struggle with how relentless it is, and
honestly, like I'm not a great one for like filler. I've always kind of taken this stance. So like, if you complain about Warped Tour, you're kind of a pussy. Like,
right.
That's just my opinion, and I think it's maybe just because of like my background and where I grew up and stuff. Like, to me, I'm like, that was the best fucking holiday I ever had in my life. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I played a show for 30 minutes a day and then was in the sun drinking beer and fucking hanging out with cool bands and like skateboarding and just like hanging out with my mates. Like, fuck off. Like, if you're in the crew, I understand it is fucking relentless, and like you're getting up at the crack of dawn and you're fucking logging and getting sunburn and fucking like, it is fucking grueling. But if you're in a band and you're complaining about it, you're fucking pussy.
There's a ton of kids out there who would love to be in that position, right?
Exactly, and that was kind of my thing. Like, but that's why I have to put my hands up and say, it wasn't hard for me because I wasn't lugging gear around or setting up merch tents and stuff. Like, we were so lucky and blessed that like even on our first time doing it, like we knew we were making enough money that we could have like a full-time merch guy and a full-time tour manager and all this stuff that made it easier. So like,
got it.
I get that there's bands that do it where they don't have that and they have to set up their own shit, and like that, I admit, would be very, very hard. And I do understand that it is super long, so I get that it is grueling in a way, but like, I don't know, I'd be a total bitch if I complained about it, I think. 'Cause like, all I had to do was like play a show, do some press, and just like enjoy it, which made me the luckiest guy in the world, I guess. It's when you see like bands in the main stage being like, yo, Warped Tour's so hard. I'm like, fuck off. But that's just me, I guess. But yeah, so that would be one of them. The other would probably be when we supported Blink-182 at Brixton Academy.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Actually, what was that like?
Dude, it was crazy. We found out about it on that first Warped Tour. I remember we were near the end of the tour, and we had a call one day from our manager, and he said, like, hey, so Blink-182 are going to do Brixton, and you're going to support. And we were like, fuck yeah. Like, you don't have to ask me twice. Growing up, pretty much all of us were like just obsessed with Blink-182, like everybody else in the scene.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, weren't we all?
It's a pretty big bucket list tick in the box. Like, let's be honest.
Exactly. And it wasn't lost on us. Like, to us, it was as big as it would have been to everyone else. Looking at like,
right.
Blink-182 was like my favorite band growing up. Like, it really was this huge deal. And second to that, Brixton Academy is just like a legendary venue, and I used to go to shows there, and it'd been a dream of mine to play that venue. So yeah, I mean, obviously we said yes. Wasn't really much question involved there, and we did it. And I think that was one of the nights that was just super memorable, because it was like the first time we played a room that big and with our favorite band, and we got to like kind of hang out with them for a bit backstage and kind of start a relationship there. And yeah, it was just one of the highlights for sure. So yeah, I think that was probably the other one.
So like anything else that jumps out, or those like the main two?
I guess the only other, like, I mean, obviously, you know, there's a million great things that I could talk about, but the other one probably be then when we came back and headlined Brixton.
Right.
That was a really like special night, and it really felt like I don't want to say the top, you know, but that was quite a bit later in the band's career, and I feel like I'd grown up a lot since then and started to understand a lot more about how like the business worked and how trends came and went and that kind of thing. And even if I didn't vocalize it, I think internally I kind of felt like we're getting near to the top now. Like, yes, this could go bigger, and you know, there's step up venues from here, but like, there's not much after that. Like after Brixton, sure, you've got Wembley Arena or Ali Pali.
Yeah,
those aren't impossible, sure, but after that, I'm like, fuck. Once you reach that, you kind of just either keep doing that or go down.
Right.
So was that when I guess you started to feel that, you know, you needed to move on to other things? I mean, is that that kind of trigger for that, or?
I guess. I mean, it's tough to say because it was a long road, and you know, I think a lot of times when things like this happen, you don't even know it to yourself until you know it. If that made any sense, which I'm sure it didn't. Like I think once you realize something like that, you realize you felt it for a long time, but didn't know you were feeling it almost.
Okay. So did you know that something wasn't quite right for you for a while, or like?
Yeah. You know, without going into too much detail. You know, into like the business itself had become there was stuff to figure out, and the interpersonal relationships had kind of reached this new level that, you know, bands are hard. It was nothing crazy, but, you know, we weren't in the best place, and I don't know. I mean,
did you have like your next move and it's set in your mind in terms of what you wanted to do next, though? Obviously,
not really. I had a vague idea. I had like started over the last sort of 6 months from that time really getting into electronic music and like pop music, and I had started trying to learn how to produce, because at that point I had never produced. Like, I had been a writer, but I didn't know how to like make the music like in a technical term. And I had started trying to teach myself that. I remember like one of the last tours I did for the band was when I was like really kind of in this zone of trying to figure it out, and every day, you know, our tour manager would find an empty room in the venue, and I would like set up my computer in there with headphones, and I would just sit alone most of the day and just like try and make music and, you know, try and figure out how to like make stuff sound good. But I wasn't trying to figure out how to record pop punk. I knew I could do that. Like, I had already started that feeling of like that realization that you listen to all these bands in the scene, and it's like, you start feeling like you're your own parent, where you play it and they're like, I can't differentiate this from the other bands you played. And you'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, they're so different. And I was kind of reaching that point where like I would listen to it and go like, this is the same thing just over and over again. It's the same sound. It's the same tone. It's the same like sonics. It's the same melodies. It's the same lyrics. It's just the same thing over and over again. And granted, you could probably say that about any genre, but I think it's if you're interested in that genre, you don't see it that way. And the fact that I was starting to see it that way probably said something bigger. And yeah, I'd gotten super into like electronic music and like pop. Well, it started like pop and pop electronic.
Any particular artists that drew you into that world?
Yeah, a really big one was this, I don't want to say band, because I guess they're not really referred to as a band, but this artist called Grey. They were a producer-artist duo, two brothers, making truly, at the time, when I found their EP, they had this EP out called Chameleon, and I listened to it, and I was like, I had never heard music like it. Like, in my head, if you just said, 6 months before that, if you just said, like, what's electronic music, I'd have said, like, Bass Hunter and, like, Cascada and shit like that. Like, I did not know that there was, like, a whole spectrum of it. And, you know, it wasn't, like, dance electronic music. It was, like, band electronic music almost. Like, they always had guitars in it, but it was, like, just the way it sounded, like, sonically, like, legitimately blew my mind. This all sounds so cliche. I'm very aware of it, but like they had a song on that EP called Crime, which was my favorite song on the EP, and it was like had acoustic guitars and this girl singing, and like the chorus or the drop or whatever you want to call it, it just sounded so like rich and organic. Like it didn't sound electronic, even though it was electronic music. It didn't sound like bleep bloop bleep bloop. You know, it sounded like there was guitars and real drums and things like that, and I just was honestly like blown away by it. I couldn't even fathom it. And from that, I found other artists and kind of went down this rabbit hole. And within the space of like a month, my whole like iTunes library or whatever I was using at the time had been deleted. And I just had this laundry list of like electronic artists. And it felt like every day I'd find a new one and I'd listen to it. And it was like, again, I sound so cliche when I say shit like this, but it genuinely was like hearing music for the first time. Like I couldn't understand it, and I like just was on this spiral of finding this new music of where like pop met electronic, and seeing the trend of it, and kind of starting to find these artists. You know, like I found San Holo at one point and Griffin, and I was like, oh damn, like they all dress like the old scene. Like this is actually like cool. This isn't some guy wearing a neon green t-shirt like at a rave with glow sticks. Like this is like a cool thing. Like I fucking love this. And yeah, I just started literally day and night only listening to that shit. And then obviously in the alt scene it was like you made a band and you were a collection of guys and that was your thing. Whereas this was like it was individual people. And I was like, damn, these dudes are like, they do it all themselves. That's like insane. And like every song featured a different singer and they'd collab with cool people. And it was like, fuck, this is the coolest thing ever. Like I love this. And so I pretty much after a few weeks of just like geeking out on it all, the fire hit my stomach and I realized like I have to learn how to do this. Like that's what I want to learn how to do. And that is what I'm passionate about right now. And I didn't really tell anyone in the band this, like, they weren't super aware. Like, I had my, and then we did that tour and I had my little room where I'd, like, make tracks. And every now and again, someone will pop in and be like, what are you making? And I'd be like, well, right now I'm not really making anything. I'm just trying to, like, learn this. I'd never had Ableton or whatever. Like, I didn't know how to make stuff. So I was just literally fucking around, staring at the screen until I knew what to do with it. And very slowly just started making songs that I guess gradually got better, and that was kind of how that started. And by that point, that was all I really cared about.
When you decided in your head, like, oh, this is something I think I might have mastered and I want to pursue this again, like how long is that gap before you telling your bandmates and actually departing the band? Like how
I mean, it was all kind of happening at the same time. But, like as I mentioned, like, on the last tour that I did, I had been, spending all my time kind of alone making music on my computer. So it already began. But yeah, I mean, transitioning to that, it's not like I was like, fuck this, I'm going to go and do this and start a project and take over the world with that. I didn't really have that goal in mind. I just wanted to be able to do it. And I thought, if I can do that, then I can produce music for other people. And I think that was more my aim, just like doing something like fresh and interesting. And, to be completely honest, I really didn't have like a plan in place. Like I'm going to do this. It was just like, I don't know, we're going to roll the dice. Like I'm going to do something. I don't know what it is yet, but something will happen.
So when you kind of sat down and kind of decided to move on, did you come back to the UK or did you kind of set up shop over there? Was that?
I didn't. Oh, I did a bit, but I was in the States at the time and just sort of stayed here. And I was with my now wife then. She wasn't my wife then, but she is now, and we were together and we were living together, and I just sort of started. I just sort of was like, I don't know. I felt like I was in a good place and I was learning and I had a lot of friends, and I was just like, I don't know what's going to come up, but like something will, and that will be what I do next, I
was just going to say, like you're saying, you got lots of friends in the industry and stuff, but I guess assumably they were like in a certain genre, and you're kind of starting to explore and branch out into a new world. Surely you were having to build kind of new relationships and a kind of new
that's
industry
definitely
and stuff.
true. Like, a good amount of the people I knew were from the alt scene, but I did have friends in other pockets too. Like, I'd started doing some like writing sessions and stuff out here, and I had friends in a more pop lane, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't really worry about it that much. It was just kind of like, I don't know. In a weird way, I just have this thing that like things kind of work out the way they're supposed to, I think. And I kind of felt like I'm just going to do whatever feels good and something might come up. And along that journey, I mean, I guess it's been like not quite 2 years yet. I've done a few things along there that like were short-term things that were like fun for a while, and more long-term things. And I now have like, actually have the last sort of 6 months has been this whole new project that I haven't really like announced or put online or anything yet, because we've been kind of working out the business side of it a bit more. It really is just this weird thing of just like just taking every day and just kind of doing what feels good. And obviously I was still making Prblm Chld songs, and kind of figuring that out. I was really slow to the draw with it, and I didn't release a song for a really long time because I didn't want to just be like, oh, I'm out the band, here's my new project, and just put up a load of shit. Like, I was more concerned about it being stuff that I was like proud of. And because of that, like I mean, still to this day, I've literally only put out like 3 Prblm Chld songs. I mean, I have like a bunch more ready, and I'm actually kind of, figuring out some business for that right now. But like, I don't know. It was more about just like doing what felt good. And like, I felt like we'd been going so hard for so long and so fast that, I don't know, just all my perspective changed a little bit. And I didn't necessarily need that, like, right, what am I doing now? Like, what's the plan? Is this project where are we going to sign it? Am I going to get an agent? It was just like, we'll just figure it out. And I would just do jobs here and there and work on projects and get paid. And
was it nice? Was it nice to be off the road?
Dude, it was
presumably
you would.
Yeah,
it still is. Like, it's been like 2 years, and I still haven't hit that bit where I'm like, fuck, like I really miss being on the road. Like, I'm obviously super open to doing it. I'm not one of those people who's like, fuck touring, I don't want to tour. Like, I'm all for it, but I feel like we did it so much that I don't have that like, oh man, I really want to be on the road. Like,
right.
I don't know. And I guess just like what I was interested in now, which was like producing music, is more of a stay-at-home thing, or like a studio thing, and that just made me a bit more happy, I think.
Oh, by the way, I think you said to me, have you got a release coming? Well, at the time of recording, have you got a release coming next week? Is that Prblm Chld?
Yeah, I do have a Prblm Chld song coming out next week today, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's probably out by the time we put this out. For the listener, it's out now. Obviously, we'll be linking that in the show notes and stuff.
Song called Little Bit, featuring this girl called RUNN, who is just this super sick, super talented singer. She kind of came up as like a top liner in the EDM world, and she sang on tracks with like people like Elenium and really big people. And she has her own like artist project now. And she sang on a song that I had done, and comes out next week. It's a fun one.
So what are your kind of ambitions for future for Prblm Chld now? Then is it just to kind of suck it and see, or have you've got a real kind of clear direction and strategy with it? Or
it's kind of both. Like in one breath, it is still just this thing I kind of do for fun. I just enjoy making the tracks, and like, I independently release them right now. But then at the same breath, there is some business happening with it. And obviously, I can't really name names right now, but I have got some like label interest, and I have an EP like pretty much done that I think is going to go out a certain way. And that will result in it being a much more legitimate project. And I will, start playing shows with it in that scene, obviously, and I'm really excited for the prospect of doing that. And
what's been your experience so far with what you've done with Prblm Chld from the alternative, from the world you've come from, like whether it be contemporaries or fans?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been much, and it's been like however long it's been, and to tell you the truth, I think I've only posted on social media about Prblm Chld like twice. Like, as far as 99% of people are concerned, I don't even have a project.
Right.
And it's because I wanted to try and build it in the scene it's supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And when that starts happening, then bring in the other people.
Got it.
So, yeah, I mean, I've literally only posted about it a couple of times, and I've had really positive responses, but I've just been trying to, like, it was this feeling of, like, if this is good and it's worth doing something, it should be worth doing on its own. People don't need to know that I was in a pop punk band, because at the end of the day, that doesn't actually mean a lot. You know what I mean? Like, if electronic label is interested in my project, what does like the fact I really mean? Except you can probably maybe expect a few extra fans at a show.
Yeah,
or you might sell a few.
Like you say, it's just not your target audience of your new music, right?
Target audience. What's the point in trying to milk them for support when they're not really the people who it's for or would particularly be interested in it? And as I said, if someone from that scene finds it and likes it, that's amazing, and I love that, and I hope that I can like inspire people from the alt scene to get interested in another type of music. That would be awesome. The same way I got inspired by it. But
I think we're definitely kind of we live in a world now where that is a bit more. It's more of a reality now in terms of the accessibility of different music. And me and Chris, we're a bit older, in our kind of mid-late 30s, and you would be kind of put in your box and in your scene purely because that was you'd have to buy CDs and that's all you spend your money on. But now, like, it's so easy to to cross over in genres and to explore music and dip it in everywhere. I think there's a lot more open-mindedness, maybe not so much in the the pop punk and alt scene, but I definitely see that.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I'd seen a bunch of dudes in bands like do similar things, and you just notice that like the only coverage that their new project would get would be in like alt press or like that kind of thing, or they'd like go on tour supporting a band from the scene, and it'd just be like, what's the point in doing a fucking side project or another project that's not meant to be alt scene if you're only going to market it to the alt scene? Like, that just seems weird to me. So, yeah, I just kind of kept really quiet about it. And I also wanted to, like, try and master my craft before really putting stuff out, because I see that a lot too, where, like, dudes want to capitalize in being a band, so they do a side project, and it's usually, like, pretty half-assed, and like writing and production wise it's like not super inspired in my opinion, and it's like, yeah, you're just kind of like capitalizing off the band you were in, and I understand that, and each to their own. And obviously I don't think for a second I've mastered my craft. I don't think you ever can, but like I just wanted to get it to a point where I felt like they kind of stood for themselves, and I just started doing that. And then along the way kind of was lucky enough to get a couple opportunities, and well, I got to do this remix for San Holo, which was like a huge deal. He was like literally, he was the Blink-182 of the electronic journey I was on, if that makes sense. Like, he was one of the OG top dogs. Like, that's the fucking goal. Get a chance to do one. I got told that San was doing like a remix pack for his first album, which had come out earlier that year or something, and I was like super into the album. I thought it was great, and they let me pick which song I wanted to do. And I knew at the time they were putting out to like other big names, and like there was going to be like a lot of people submitting these remixes, because that's kind of how this works. Like, artist releases the song, and then they put out to like 10, 15 of the really big EDM guys, and then they all make a remix, and they pick like 2 or 3 of their favorite ones. Yeah, long story short, I got to pick a song, I did it, and they loved it and ended up, putting it on the record. So I was like stoked about that. And that kind of started a little wave of discussion with that side, and it also kind of opened up a few fans, and songs started picking up a little bit, and just like slow stuff, like it's still super, super, super early for that, but like little things of like kind of coming into the scene the right way, in my opinion, like through the door that like people associate that world with. Like, I could have quite easily, you know, I don't want to pull a name because obviously I can't, but like I could have quite easily gone to one of the bigger like alternative bands that I was friends with and be like, let me do a remix for you, and it would have gone online and probably made like a bunch of streams and been like a thing. Like,
yeah. Oh, were you not tempted to do that though?
Honestly, no. Like, I mean, I'm not against it, and I've done a couple for a couple of people, and it's super fun. It's not really what I was interested in, so I've even had like some offers to do those things, and you know, pretty much all of them I've said no to because it's just not. It's not really what I want to do. So yeah, and then you know, another thing I got to do that just kind of kept the wheels turning. This one's actually kind of funny. I got to do this like electronic song for the League of Legends video game.
I know. I was listening to that recently. That's. I mean,
that's like a song, basically.
I mean, I don't know if it's my age because I'm like 37. But like I didn't know what League of Legends was. But like I just saw it was under your.
That's what's funny about it. Like I did not realize.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I had heard the name, but I did not know that it was like the Goliath that it is, and this huge thing. And this manager I'm working with was like, "Hey, like, do you know what League of Legends is?" I was like, "Yeah, the video game." He's like, "Yeah." He was like, "So they do a lot with music, and they do this thing every year called the All-Star Anthem, and they get like a person to feature on it. It's, you know, big deal or whatever." I'm like, "Okay, cool, yeah. So what do you need from me?" And they were like, at the time, my understanding was they wanted like some ghost production work, like, which for anyone who doesn't know is where you get paid to produce something for somebody else. They put their name on it, and you know, are silent. You're paid to not, you know, take credit for it, and happens every day. And I was like, yeah, cool, no worries.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
You know, give me the details. Let's do it. And you know, he had mentioned the budget, and it was a legitimate job, shall we say? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm down. And then they sent me like the beginnings of this song, like the guitars and the drums and the kind of the vocal of this kind of pop punky thing. And they were like, yeah, we really want to do like the Marshmallow A Day to Remember thing where it's like pop punk meets electronic pop. And I was like, yeah, cool.
It's definitely got that feel. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I ended up starting this project with a friend of mine, like accidentally. Again, it's that thing where like after the band, I didn't have 100% a plan. I just felt like I was learning a craft and I had a bunch of friends and like something will come up. I don't want to force it. Like something will present itself and it'll feel right. And that'll be the next thing. And this was kind of that, I think. Like God, how far back do I go in the story? So I got asked, my friend Emmett, who at the time was managing Young, as in the
managing Youngblood, did you say?
Yes.
Or Young?
You know, the Sheffield pop rocker kid, Youngblood.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He was managing him, and he called me one day, and he said, hey, he was working at this management company, and he was like, hey, we've got this new artist that we're managing, and he's like doing really well in sync, which I guess for anyone who doesn't know is like when they put your song in like Netflix shows and movie theaters and TV shows and video games, like putting your music on TV basically and movies and shit. There's quite a like stylistic sound to music that syncs really well and lyrically and stuff. And anyway, he said, listen, we've got this kid, this new artist, he's pretty new. He's going out with Youngblood soon on the road, I think it was, and he's about to, you know, we're fielding a couple like big deals, and we've already got a sync team in place. This great company, and he's coming to LA to do a bunch of sync showcases, which is where basically you go to all the major like TV studios and movie studios, and you go to the head music guy's office, and a few people from the team come in and sit around chairs, and you play a few songs acoustically, answer a few questions. It's like a meet and greet, you know, and it's that very kind of business sense of like the kid, you know, if you go and do a meet and greet for them, they're much more likely to give you good syncs because they know your face and they've met you and there's like a story. And so he was on his like sync showcase run, as it were, and they were like, he needs someone to play guitar for him for these showcases. I think it was like 5 or 6 showcases over like 2 days. They were doing like Warner Brothers, Paramount, Disney, ABC, NBC, like all the major studios. I'm going to go to like the head of music's office and play like 4 songs acoustically and let him talk, and you're just going to play guitar for him. And I was like, yeah, cool, man. And he was like, we'll obviously pay you X, Y, and Z. And the artist was called Barlow Lane, ironically.
Right. Yeah. Little throwback, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a Parkway Drive thing. He grew up on a street called Barlow Lane, so he named his project Barlow Lane, the classic Parkway move. And so we did these sync showcases. I think the first one was at like Paramount Studios, and we went to this big fancy music executive's office, and there's all the gold records and all that shit, and we sit down and play, and he talks, and I sit there quietly and play guitar when he nods at me, and it was great. And I met his sync team, and they were telling me about some of the placements they were getting for his music, at which point I'd obviously learned like 4 of his songs, and I was thinking to myself, like, this music is great, don't get me wrong, like he's doing a really cool thing, but like stylistically and production-wise and stuff, like I could definitely make this stuff, and like he's killing it on sync. Like it seems like he's doing really well. That's great for him. Like, and it kind of put this idea in the back of my head of like, well, maybe I could do a little sync project where I like produce music by myself and I just give it to these people and they put it in stuff and see what happens. So that's kind of what I did. I like hit up this friend of mine called John, because we had done a couple sessions together and I really liked his voice. And he had a project called St. Clair at the time, which was like a pop project, and he'd been doing really well on it. And like he had featured on a Macklemore song and like was doing really well. And I loved his voice, and I was like, hey man, like I think I'm going to like do some sync stuff. Like I told him the story about the Barlow Lane thing, and I was like, I met this really cool sync company and they seem really nice. And I was like, would you be into like singing on it? And he was like, yeah, sure. So we got together and started making some music kind of with the intention in mind of doing it for sync, like making very like cinematic, like theatrical, like, movie trailer music, as you might call it. But we would like, a lot of that stuff tends to be, especially when it's like movie trailers, like maybe instrumental, or like the structure's very different. And we kind of like came at it from like a pop perspective of like, if we structure these songs like pop, but made them sound like trailer songs, like that would be kind of a cool project. Like, wow, that would be kind of cool. So we started doing it for fun, and we did a few songs, and we just really liked the way they sounded. And I ended up getting back in touch with the sync team that had been working on Barlow and showed it to them, and they were like, yo, this is really, really sick. Let's have a meeting. And they liked it. We ended up working together. And fast forward a bit, we've been doing that for a little while now, and it kind of ended up, it was actually, to be honest, it was kind of them that really told us. We had our first meeting with them, and they were like, what's the plan? And we were like, well, I told them the plan I just told you. Like, we just wanted to like do some songs that you guys can sync and we can just make money off, and while we do our other things. And they were kind of like, yo, this is more than that. Like, you need to do this like an actual project, because not only does it make our job easier if you're a real band, if there's a story there, and makes it a lot easier for us to get placements for you. Like, this sounds like a real project. And we had been kind of discussing that idea, and then we really opened up to it and just started working on it a bunch more, and kind of decided we were going to do that. And like, we haven't put anything out, and we still haven't, because we like wanted to take some time to like do a bunch of music, really figure it out and find the sound and the branding and like what it's going to be and where it's going to fit in the world and all that kind of stuff. And so, I think, we've kind of decided like once life gets a little bit more normal, we're going to just start rolling out this new band, as it were, and it's just like me and one other guy.
Cool.
It's a really fun one. It's like very different, I think. I'm pretty proud of it.
Watch this space.
Oh, nice, man. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that. I think that probably feels like a good time to maybe wrap this up, because we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us late on your Friday morning.
I thought you had a sandwich-based question, Chris.
Oh, please. Those are my favorite kind of questions.
Yeah, that was the last question I was going to ask you, just because I saw on your Twitter, like, I think your handle was just like LA and sandwiches. So I just wondered what your favorite sandwich in LA and in the UK are.
Oh, damn. Well, I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm a big sandwich guy. I pretty much make myself like a ham and cheese sandwich like every day for lunch with salt, vinegar, crisps, obviously. But in terms of out here, there's this place called Larchmont Wine and Cheese, which is like a kind of wine store, but they have like a fresh deli sandwich counter, and they make the most incredible sandwiches. And I'm obsessed with them, so I think that would be my favorite sandwich.
Okay,
there
nice.
you go.
Yeah, Americans do sandwiches like delis. They take it seriously and they do their sandwiches as well.
Some bougie shit.
And there's lots of choice of that in LA.
Fresh stuff, and it's almost like a healthy deli sandwich. It's sick.
Nice. Well, maybe we should leave it on that very poignant note.
For sure.
Yeah.
Nice one. Well, I guess enjoy the rest of your weekend, and good luck with all your Prblm Chld stuff.
Sounds good, man.
Nice one. Cheers,
Awesome.
Phil. Have a good one.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, we'd love it if you could subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, whether that's iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or anywhere like that. Also, check us out on social media. If you just search for Wasting Time Podcast on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, give us a like or a follow on any of those. And also, we love hearing from listeners as well, so feel free anytime to drop us an email at thewastingtimepodcast@gmail.com, or obviously you can message us on social media as well. But we'll catch you next time.